Tonight on Walk the Plank, Dead and Buried Treasures welcomes a new network to its ever-growing lineup. We'll tell you about a restaurant in Menneson, Pennsylvania that is dedicated to Ghostbusters once a year. And as you can tell, tonight we have a new host for Walk the Plank, at least temporarily, while Rich is off for the holidays. All this and more tonight on the Dead and Buried Treasures pre-show, Walk the Plank. Yarr! Ahoy, everybody, and Merry Christmas. It's that time of the season. I'm not Rich Kanji, though. My name's Nicholas Callas, and I'm here hosting this Walk the Plank show ahead of Dead and Buried Treasures with Captain Caligo Drake himself, Erik, and welcome.
Merry Christmas.
All right, well, let's talk about the show that's coming up here. Santa and Martians.
He's up to no good.
Let's just start there. What brought those two together?
Well, you know, in the nature of what we do on the show, we needed a Christmas. Thriller is the wrong word to use. It's more of a homey, Christmassy kind of feel. But it was made in 1964 at a budget of $200,000. Nick Weber directed it. And the Martians have been watching us for a long time. And they say to themselves, they happen to be watching us around Christmas time, and they say, what's all those red suits walking around with big beards and everything? Oh, that's their Santa Claus. And they're like, we need one of those on our planet to bring us happiness, because we're all pissed at each other, I guess. And whatever the Martians are like, Martians are green, they hate each other. We need Santa up here. So they get the bright idea to go kidnap a department store Santa. And because when they get to Earth, they're like, well, wait, there's one on that corner. There's one in that department store. They said, where's the one supposed to be? And they say, this place called the North Pole, you know. So they go to the North Pole and they try to kidnap Santa Claus to bring all this merriment back to Mars. So it's a fun movie. I watched it before and I thought, God, this is so stupid. But when you watch it again, because I cleaned up the print quite a bit. It's a family kind of film. If you take it for the nonsense that it really is, it's not like a horror film, but it's fun for the family where you're wrapping presents and you see what's going on. It's that kind of a film. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.
How many times did it take you to watch it before you actually... Do you know exactly how many? Because I can't put together Santa Claus with Martians. Like, I get the storyline, but, like, what in the world could have inspired somebody...
You know, back in the day, Hollywood was cranking out a bunch of really lame monster movies. There's one called Creature from the Haunted Sea, and the guy's walking around in this big costume, and you can see the zipper going up the front, and it was just really not the most magnanimous.
Flattering.
Yeah. So I guess when they put this together, a lot of the horror films back in the day you watch now, and they're like, oh, God, that was so silly. But back at the time, they did that to be serious, you know, and you're like, really? But they did. So I don't know if this was meant to be. I'm hoping that it wasn't meant to be serious.
So is it like, because I've seen, or I've known of some of those sci-fi films, and I've seen some of them from before, like, you can't compare the special effects from Star Wars, as an example, to the ones in the past. Oh, the storylines are arguable. But anyway, you know what I mean. So
storylines are arguable. You're too kind.
You know what I mean? But effects have obviously gradually moved and improved since the 60s and the 70s. So do you think it was one of those films where maybe they were trying to start something, like they were experimenting with ways to use technology in that time to convince people that the Martians are actually real? Or the effects were actually from other planets?
I don't think so. I think that they realized with the subject matter, they're trying to make a Santa Claus funny movie because a lot of it is just nonsense. You can tell. I'll tell you why. I'll give you a good example. The Martians you see in War of the Worlds are not the Martians you see here. They have taken green spray paint and literally spray painted everybody green. In fact, one of the bad guys has that cheesy Burt Reynolds mustache that's real thick and goes all the way down, and he didn't shave it. I mean, he's walking around, he's got a green mustache. You're like, oh man, but there is an audience for this kind of thing. You know, that people like to see dumb movies and just like kind of channel surf, and that's what makes our segments of the show look like Academy Award winners. I mean, so it actually helps us. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Everybody can do better than stuff like that.
Oh man, you would be surprised. It's no secret that my gig, other than this, is I'm a college professor. I'm like Clark Kent in the daytime and Superman at night. I'm like Calico Drake at night. I'm a college professor in the day, and I teach TV, radio, and film. And I've had some students create some pretty bad movies, but I've seen some students create some better movies than Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. You know what I mean? So I think if you take it with a grain of salt, you'll have a good time tonight. That's for sure.
Well, let me ask you this, too, because this is my first time doing this show. Not the first time seeing it, but this is my first time here. And I want to ask you, speaking of that, what is it like to teach during the day and to grab that inspiration from your students, and then you come at night and you work as a pirate and you feature movies about Santa Claus running or looking to be captured by another worldly life forms?
Well, you know,
I'm curious.
The thing is, when you host a show like this, you want to use public domain films. They're public domain for a reason. You know, it's like but you get some gems once in a while, like Vincent Price, some Abbott, one or two Abbott and Costellos.
That reminds me that these films were before Disney did that whole thing in the 70s where they extended copyright law. So that would make sense that they reached public domain sooner than the more new films that have that better quality now.
Right, and you don't get a lot of, I don't want to say that because I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. You don't get a lot of high quality with public domain films that you would any other movie. I mean, I've seen some horror hosts out there that try to go, they try to host Jaws, or they try to host the original Halloween, or the Scream movies. First of all, it's illegal. So good luck with that. And I guess there's a reason that they're only horror hosts for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But then the ones that are the long lasters, the lifelongers, what do you want to call them? They know the difference between public domain and what's not public domain. So you want to do a public domain movie that is legal, first of all. But there's no way to find out. There's no like, hello, this is the Department of Public Domain Movies. There's no way to find that out. The only way you can do that is to do real research. And if you have to go out and do the research on it, you find some distributors of public domain films to broadcast affiliates. You find those and say, is this one public domain? Is this one on there? This one's not? Oh, and then you try to cross-comparison that with all the other ones, so you stumble upon some gems once in a while. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians isn't what I would call a gem. It's still good. I found, like I said, a good print, but it's a Christmassy movie the 1950s way. You know.
So what does that include then? What would you consider 1950s, 1960s Christmases?
The wholesome, you know, let's sing Christmas carols, dun 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 dun, in the middle of the street.
Do
and
the Martians sing?
Oh yeah.
You know, after all, let's go.
Yeah. We have to learn this thing called Christmas Carol, and it's like, where you sing? Sing. What is sing? You know. So you got a lot of those kind of moments in there, but it's not a bad movie. It's fun, and you have to take it with a grain of salt. And we found an ending out there that's not seen everywhere.
So there's two different endings to this movie?
Well, there's an additional ending that they end with that's animated that you don't see in all the copies out there. So it's kind of like an exclusive tonight on the show.
So you found it?
I did.
Like an epilogue?
Yes.
All right, so how do you have a movie? Okay, I guess I'll answer that. How do you have a movie with an end? And I know what an epilogue is, but you don't see too many epilogue style.
You know,
like in movies, you usually read them in books just to get extra context. But how do you fit? And this cartoon was designed in the 50s as well.
So you can tell, and it's got you just have to see it. But a lot of copies, to believe it. Like it. But a lot of times, it's just not out there. It's not included with other prints. I don't know why, but it is what it is. I think it's because of time constraints. Sometimes you'll see a print, like I found several copies of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Some of them are 123 in length. One was 138 in length. One of them is 125 in length. You're like, okay, where do they make the cuts and the edits in this? And so when you don't want to sit there and look at all the copies because you'd have to compare them like right next to each other, playing with each other. But I found the one that I thought looked the cleanest. I cleaned it up myself. It does have that ending to it that doesn't seem to be in a lot of other places. I thought it'd be a Merry Christmas for people to be watching tonight. So we'll see what happens. Plus, I forgot too, that we have some really good stuff going on the show tonight, just the movie. We have cooking, how to make seafood risotto from Chef Papa in the kitchen in the galley. We have a nice storyline going on with Drake and Jasper and Mirabella. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, tonight for a holiday segment, holiday episode.
If everyone's going to feel homey on Christmas,
lobsters.
So is that what a pirate does on Christmas? Not ham or turkey in some cases? It's lobster.
Yeah, we got to do seafood risotto. Originally it was lobster risotto, and then we found the prices of lobster out there today. It's like, my producer, Rich Kanji, who normally hosts the show, your predecessor, he looked at me and goes, I'm not paying all that money for that lobster. And I was like, what can we do? Because Joe Messino is his father-in-law. I said, he wants to make something. He says, I'll do seafood risotto. Okay. I said, okay, that'll work. So it's all believable on the ship, we're out there in the middle of the ocean. You got to eat something. You can't get ham and turkey and hamburgers and
whatever the sea provides.
Right, whatever the sea provides, Nick. That's how we do it. It's a lot of fun.
Anything else you want our viewer to know before we get to the trailer?
Yeah, let's take a look at the trailer. I think we've kind of set it up enough. It comes in 1964. It was directed by Nick Weber at a budget of $200,000, and it's a horror fest. You're going to have to pull the covers up. It's so scary.
Well, here you go then. Here's the trailer for Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Blast off! For the most wonderful science fiction fun and adventure a boy or a girl or a grown-up ever enjoy. Meet Billy and Betty as they encounter the fierce Martians. It's so exciting, so amazing, you'll want to tell all your friends about that wondrous day when red-faced Santa meets the green-faced Martians. You'll see it all when Joseph E. Levine presents Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. From the moment when the spaceship kidnaps Billy and Betty, here are some of the incredible things you'll actually see as Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. You'll hardly believe your eyes as a giant Martian robot captures Billy and Betty. The evil Voldar imprisons Billy, Betty, and Santa in a space death chamber. Will they escape? The people of Earth give the signal that sends their mighty Air Force into space to rescue Santa. Surprise meeting. Earth kids meet Martian kids. Santa sets up a fantastic automatic toy factory on Mars. The Martian leader battles the wicked Voldar in a desperate effort to save Santa. The wise man of Mars. 900 years old. The Battle of the Toys, when Martian kids and Earth kids join Santa to battle the bad guys of Mars. For real space-age fun, you'll be out of this world when Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Well, it's the Christmas season, so we figured we'd skip the horror news tonight, right? And we'd go to the mailbag, and tonight we're going to call it Santa's Mailbag. And I got some questions here.
Santa would appreciate that.
All right, first letter here comes from...
Oh, wait, before we start,
Okay.
I'm glad to see that you recovered from the horror that is Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. That trailer was way too scary.
I know. It really was.
Oh, God, I can't believe we're hosting this.
This first letter comes from Sarah Stinton from Carrick, Pennsylvania, and she says, Captain Drake, we love your show. We just got done watching the most recent one you've done, which was Count Dracula and his Vampire Brides. Mm-hmm. Very good.
That was a good one, actually.
The Halloween show. So we thought that was very well done. And the question is, can you really stay at Buffalo Bill's house?
Oh, yeah, you can. Back in our Halloween show, we visited some places in the area that were really scary. We went to the Century Inn in Scenery Hill. We went to the Carnegie Connellsville Library in Connellsville, PA, because these places were really supposed to be haunted. And I didn't want to go to places that were like prisons. That I don't want somebody going out there and falling and scratching themselves up or something. We went to places you could actually visit. So one of the places we went to was Buffalo Bill's. And I had the pleasure of many, many moons ago in another life working on Silence of the Lambs. And I knew exactly where it was. And I knew I said, I got to see this. It's been, has it really been 30 years since Silence of the Lambs? So yeah, so I wanted to see it. I had been there back there since I was a kid. So we went back along that same bridge that goes on forever. It's just, at nighttime, it's so scary. But yeah, you can stay in these places. Absolutely. It's a real place you can stay. It's a real B&B. You can stay there and it looks it's exactly what it was when Buffalo Bill lived there in 1991. Won 5 Oscars. It's a good time. And yeah, you can stay there. That's for sure. Has a great owner, Chris Rowan. He's amazing. And he's renovated and restored everything to make it very scary.
Ooh, very nice.
Scary.
All right, this next letter comes from Phil Kesselman from Flick, Oregon.
Okay.
And he says, thanks for reading my letter, Eric. Merry Christmas to you and Rich.
Merry Christmas, Phil.
We watch you on Dead and Buried Treasures every weekend. We love the show. We just finished watching the Thanksgiving show. And we're wondering if Chef Papa really does all the cooking with his granddaughter and if it actually is any good.
Yes, he does. He does all the cooking in the galley for the entire crew. That's the theory on the show. But he really does the real cooking. He and his daughter, or his granddaughter Talia, do it on the show for everybody who is lucky enough to be there when he cooks. I mean, it is magnifique. Or what would he say? Well, he'd say magnifique. I think he's used the term magnifique. It is really good, and he does all the cooking. He's really good at it. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
This next letter comes from Joseph Zentcosta from Tampa Bay, Florida. And he says, Ahoy, Captain Drake.
Ahoy!
Can you tell
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, Florida.
They must
Tampa
watch
Bay,
us on
Florida.
DBTV or something. Yeah, that's good.
Can you tell us why we can't see more of you on the Monster Channel or the Vortex Network? It seems like you are only on there once a month.
Well, we just picked up another national network, and I know we teased this in the beginning. It's called Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. I call it ANC. And it's in 6 states, and it originates somehow out of Connellsville, Pennsylvania. Oh. And so we picked them up, so that's nice to see. DBTV, we're across the country, around the world, Saturday and Sundays at 9. The Monster Channel and the Vortex are set up to broadcast our shows as specials. And the specials are as soon as we can get them cranked out. So sometimes they'll show reruns of us on there. Other times they'll show the new episodes. But we can only make, because of all the effects and intricacy, and I wish we could say we're all paid for this. But we're not. And we do it for the love of the art. We're all artists. So we do it for the love of the art. And we can only crank out one a month, and we get a time slot, generally on Wednesdays at 9 on the Vortex, and sometimes Tuesdays at 9 on the Monster Channel. But they're all there on Roku and all your streaming devices too. So that's the only reason we're on there. So limited.
All right.
Yep, that's it.
The next letter from Abigail Patridge from Salem, Massachusetts. And she writes...
Ooh, Salem.
Salem.
I like that.
Northeast. I know
I was thinking more of Home of the Witches. Like the
yes.
the Salem witch trials.
See, I'm in my Martians mood. I'm not in the horror mood. Like, I'm not...
So if this came from Mars, PA,
I'd be like, ooh, Santa conquers Mars.
I got you. Yep, I got you now. Yep.
But Abigail asks, how do you decide on your movies that you host?
Well, we touched upon this. Abigail?
Yes.
We touched upon this, Abigail, earlier. I like to do public domain because that way we have complete control of it. But there's a few out there that I want to talk to the producers. I'd like to get Trauma Films on board, who owns The Toxic Avenger and Zombie Chicks from Biker Chicks from Zombie Town and things like that. But then I'm not sure if we could keep in control of being able to put the movie on whenever we want. I'm not sure how that would work. In fact, a buddy of mine directed the 2 Bigfoot movies that were shot. Here's a cheap plug. Here in the Pittsburgh area called Bigfoot the Movie and its sequel. His name's Jared Schall. You'll see him a lot, by the way, on these Sheets posters in Pittsburgh. The guy smiling with the big furry beard and his drink that looks like Santa Claus, that's Jared. And he directed all the Bigfoot movies. And I said, hey, could we get Bigfoot on our show to host? And he goes, it's tied up with Vudu, Amazon Prime, and a couple others, so I can't do it just yet. But when the contract runs out, so I've learned too that the easiest way to do it is through public domain movies. And as far as Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, there's not a lot of Christmas movies out there that are public domain and horror. There's like maybe 5 I can think of. So it's kind of done that way. We like to do public domain first, and then after that, if it's really good, I'll try to talk with the producers to see if there's a way to go about it.
All right.
Yeah.
This letter comes from Debbie Kinkabala from Leonardtown, Maryland.
Okay.
She says, Captain, you are the sexiest pirate I have ever laid eyes on, and I love your show.
Oh, wow. I think she needs a patch.
Well, no,
thank you.
That lead actually brings to the question, is there a Mrs. Sexy Pirate in your life?
Well,
I love that question, Debbie. That's Nick's favorite of the night.
Well, I have an ex-wife who was Mrs. Pirate there for a while. But did you say that letter came from Leonardtown, Maryland?
Yeah.
What was her name again?
Debbie Kinkubala.
I used to teach in Leonardtown, Maryland, of all places, and I'm wondering if she was like really writing me to ask me that. But yeah, there's always someone. There's a special someone out there for Captain Drake.
That's all. That's the only detail. That's my favorite question.
That's her. I don't know. See, the thing is, when you do a show of this nature, everybody likes to operate in show names because you don't. Some people frown on the fun that we have, and I don't. But to me and you and our degree, I don't know if you have a communication degree, but like you do, so you know what I mean. So you like to go out there and do TV. You don't care if you're acting. You don't care if you're writing. I look at it as a great experience. So there's some people out there, like if you're a doctor or a nurse or a teacher or somebody else or a banker, you may not want to have your name necessarily associated with the quote unquote nonsense of the show. You know what I mean? So there's a Mrs. Pirate out there. Yeah.
All right, well.
In some way, yeah.
Okay. Chuck. Still my favorite.
Awkward!
Chuck from Fosbrink. Chuck Fosbrink. He writes from Hampton, Nevada. Okay. Ahoy, Captain, and
Ahoy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
When is your comic book coming out?
Oh, yes. We teased that they're doing a comic book for Dead and Buried Treasures. Gabriel Mastracci, who is the son of one of our producers for the show, Fiore Mastracci. By the way, we hope you're getting better.
Yes.
Obviously, because he's been in the hospital for having some things done. Yeah. He's going to ink the comic book for us. I'm going to write the storyline, and I was hoping to have it out at Christmas, but like they say, time happens.
You got caught up in the Martians.
Yeah,
right?
Things happen. Yeah, the Martians. Those pesky guys. They happen, it's here, and you just don't get a chance to get it as quick as you want. But I'm hoping to get it done and maybe inked by maybe this summer so we can have it at a couple of conventions we visit. We'll see. Hopefully. We'll see how that works out.
All right. Next letter from Tony Frampton from Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. He says, hello, Captain. Is Fort Necessity really haunted? And the same thing for the Connellsville Library and the Century Inn.
Oh, yeah.
We'd really like to stay at those places.
Yeah,
we don't know if they're haunted.
Yeah, we talked about them earlier. They really are. Yeah, they're all haunted, especially I had the privilege of being there at Fort Necessity. And I tell you what, there's a place we also had on the show called the Mount Washington Tavern that's on the same property as Fort Necessity. and this was my only real experience with something haunted. When I went into the Mount Washington Tavern to shoot, I was by myself, my producer couldn't make it that day, so I went in there and I'm going to do it all by myself and get it over and done with. And I'm inside walking around, and I keep hearing these kids laughing, like giggling, like hee 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 hee. I'm the only one in the building.
Oh no.
I'm the only one in the building, and I'm like, okay, what's that all about? And I know this makes me sound crazy. I know it does, but I'm hearing laughing. I thought, well, it's got to be somebody, outside, like another tour coming in. So, like, I went downstairs. I'm shooting throughout the house. I'm still hearing the laughing. But now it sounds like it's inside the house. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I go outside, and there's nobody in the parking lot. So it can't be the kid theory. I'm like, unless they're out there inside screwing with me. But, yeah, I said, oh, I didn't even pay it any mind. So then I went home to write some of it, and I noticed when it actually finishes the #1 haunted place in Pennsylvania. Oh. And I was like, okay, so I'm writing the research, and they say, here, things you hear, blah, 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 kids giggling and laughing. I was like, so I think I experienced it. So I wasn't scared, but I was like, it just sounded like laughing, giggling, like if your kids are over there running around at Christmas. And that's what I had heard. So I'm going to say yes, it is haunted.
The first letter comes from Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Vabrick from Cincinnati, Ohio. They write, hello, Captain. Thank you so much for resurrecting these forgotten classics on our TV channel. Mm-hmm. We wished we lived in Pittsburgh to meet you. Cincinnati people want to live in Pittsburgh.
I also
you
taught
bring
in
them
Cincinnati.
Here.
Did you? I know. I'm like, all these people finding out about me.
The question is, do you go to conventions like Steel City?
I do, actually. I go to Steel City. In fact, they're one of the sponsors of our show. I just learned that there's a horror Hall of Fame, and it's located in Cincinnati.
Is that right?
I didn't know that. In fact,
I didn't either.
One of my buddies, who the Spooky Spectre in another life, when we did a show called Fright Night Friday, he made it to the Hall of Fame this year, and I think he retired, and he's in Florida now.
Oh, wow.
So I got to congratulate Harry Metz on that one. But yeah, we do go to Steel City. We go to we're planning on hitting a whole bunch of horror conventions this year, including Cinema Wasteland and the Monster Fest and Horror Fest here is it Horror Fest? It's in Bethel Park?
Oh, I'm not sure.
There's one in Bethel Park. I think it's called Horror Fest, Horror Realm. So we are going to start getting back out there in the mix of things. We had to take a little time off because of COVID, but I think everybody did. So now we're trying to get back in the swing of things.
All right, well, we're almost out of time, and that's good because we just got one last letter. Galen Strutherland from North Versailles, Pennsylvania, writes, hello, Captain. Merry Christmas. We were wondering how you developed the character of Captain Drake. For instance, why do you pronounce all your O's so long, like moon instead of moon?
Oh, you know what? No one's ever asked me that before, and I don't know how that happened. Like, I'll say, what's tonight's movie? And that's how I'll say it. And I'm like, so make sure you tune in. I don't know what I did or why I do that, but I just do. And I think it comes from Tim Conway back on the Carol Burnett show, and he would do this guy called Dorfman. And he would always go, no, it was the one where he had the secretary. You're too young for this. On the Carol Burnett show, he'd be like, I'd really like to take you out on the date. I don't even know, but that's probably where it came from. I don't know. Maybe psychologically, that's where I got it in my head. I do something like that. But thank you for noticing. I wish I had an answer to that, but it just kind of, when you put on the Captain Drake outfit and the patch and the hat, it just happens. And I start talking like this, and I start doing a lot of really weird walk like this, and it just comes out. So I don't know. I wish I could give you a more definitive answer. But I want to get to the movie. We got to see how Santa Claus beats these guys. That's up next, right?
Yeah. I think we're all ready for this new adventure of mayhem and green people and Santa.
It's so appropriate. There's a red guy in red. The Martians are green. It's Christmassy. It's like hometown fun. And, of course, horror attacking and conquering. Well, Merry Christmas, Nick. I appreciate you hosting it. Maybe we'll get you on again.
I hope so.
I think it was a good time.
Coming up next, Santa conquers the Martians, wherever you get dead and buried treasures.